This one's really interesting. One of them is a politically incorrect joke told by one of the male doctors in the room. Now, I was sent an advance copy of the manuscript, a loose leaf copy, and asked to write a blurb for the back cover, which I did. But when the book came out, the joke had been excised from the pages of the manuscript because it was politically incorrect. But I have the pre-pub manuscript copy with the joke in it, and here's what happened. When the doctor came to her room, when she came out of the, surgery, the doctor who made the joke came to her room, and she said, "Did you say this about me?" And she reported the joke. And she knew all this, and she knew what he'd said, and she wasn't mad at him. She liked this guy. She was a little disturbed that he'd said it, but she liked the guy. And so they kind of laughed and kind of caught up about it. But she could report the joke to him during this time. Now, she'll tell you what happened at the end of this. While this was going on, and the deeper the experience went, and as she went into this dead as dead can be state, she was watching the surgery, and she zipped off. And she said, "I went down this tunnel, and I went to this beautiful place, and I wanted to keep going, and they wouldn't let me there." She was talking to some of my deceased relatives. Okay, there's no test for this. There's no test for this kind of stuff. But very frequently when a near-death person tells you something about, they describe, quote, heaven, they will tell you about a boundary. It's a river, it's a lake, it's a mountain range. One woman told me it was an escalator. That's interesting. In heaven, an escalator in heaven. There's some kind of boundary, it's a fence. And if they go beyond it, they're told they can't go further and return. So this lady is watching this, and she's saying, "What's over there? Oh, you can't go in there. Oh, I want to go over there. You can't go there." And she'd take a step this way. And her uncle kept stepping in front of her. Said, "You can't go there." He was deceased. This is what she said. And he'd step in front of her, and he wouldn't let her go around. And when she came back, she had this long experience, starting with the 6 corroborative things in the room and the joke that was told and what was done and what the room looked like and all the stuff and the saw blades and then zipping away. And like I said, there's no test for heaven. But I'll tell you this, there's no test for hell either. There's no empirical data that these people were in those places. What's most interesting, though, philosophically, I think, is the brain state. If this is a brain state where the brain's not working, but the person's making profound observations, they make them as soon as they come to, so someone doesn't give them this data over time. They start telling the story as soon as they come to, and it's in their report, or it's what the room looked like. They can verify a joke that 15 other people in the room remember. Things like this. This indicates to me that something beyond a physical brain is operating here. Now, in one of the books, the titles you heard before I came up here, J.P. Moreland and I did a couple of books on death and dying and some of this material. And I don't think this is evidence per se of heaven or hell, because we don't have evidence at that stage, you know what I mean, out there. We don't have experience from her uncle and what he was doing because he was deceased, right? But it's interesting that people are claiming at least to have these kinds of experiences. And the this worldly side of it, the things they can report down here, seem to be you can check it out. You can check reports out. And sometimes we have overlap with reports, like a car accident and an EMT's report. We have a police report and an EMT report, where you see things lining up and the person tells you what's going on, but they were not in any kind of a state to report this. And we concluded, I hope carefully, but we concluded for what we called minimalistic life after death. By minimalistic life after death, we mean not the furniture of heaven or hell, but minutes, or in some cases hours, after death. That's all we, or at the case of Katie, the girl from Idaho, 3 days. But it's minimal because you can't talk about, some of these people report demons, some of these people report angels. We don't have any test for that sort of thing. That's just their experience. But the part that can be checked out when it's after the heart not beating for so long, brainwave not working for so long. I'm going to bring this to close for the next 5 minutes and ask if you have any questions. But, you know, what's most interesting about talking to some of these near-death cases is, I will go ahead and say this first. On the back of your sheet is some stuff about the resurrection. It's not my purpose to chat about that tonight, but let me put a plug in for our discussion tonight. Dr. Flew and I are in this room up here, I understand, for a friendly dialogue on the resurrection tonight. I think the evidence for near-death experiences, I think, is very, very interesting. The resurrection is a different category of data, and that would purport, I mean, we're talking about Jesus. We are talking about some of the data about heaven, hell, and so on. But I'll just put a plug in for tonight's, Chuck, 8 o'clock, right? 8 o'clock tonight in this room. Okay, let me end with this. When you interview a person with a near-death experience, in spite of how evidential some of these cases might be, and you're sitting there and you're scribbling like mad and things where you think you can check this worldly kind of events out when they're in states where they shouldn't be able to report this. It's really interesting because sometimes what the person says that can't be verified kind of tugs at your heart a little bit more than what people say that can be verified. Now, there's no verification. It's just that there's some experience level here that kind of gets you. Now, certainly this man who had 7 heart attacks and said he was in hell is an interesting case. The hell cases of that nature are fairly rare, but there are a number of them, and there's different kinds of hell type cases, or no, let's just say negative cases. The people call them hell, but negative cases. But the positive cases can have a really, really profound effect on a person, even if there's no evidence.